Behind me is no ordinary hill. Welcome to the Cahokia Mounds, the largest pre-Columbian site north of the Rio Grande. And this is no ordinary hill. This is Monk's Mound, but we'll get there. First, let's get back to the studio. The Cahokia Mounds is more specifically a Native American city, belonging to a tribe of an unknown name, but they have descendants in the Osage and Chickasaw nations, along with the Peoria, Quapaw, Miami, and others. This city has all the facets of a modern-day one. It's featured sweat lodges, burial complex, religious and community meeting sites, and even sprawling grand structures. The site started growing in 1050 and really hit the fan in the 1100, and it reached its pinnacle. It covered 7,000 acres and housed upwards of 20,000 people, with more people living in Cahokia than London at the time. Yes, this will be on the test, so mark it down. It was set up like this, with 3 distinct precincts. The Cahokia precinct here, which is the main one preserved and where the in-person portion of this video will mostly be filmed. This was home to most of the people in the administrative centers. Then you have the East St. Louis precinct, which ran across this lake. This was mostly residential areas, but mostly your higher class, your higher class people lived in the East St. Louis precinct. And then the St. Louis precinct across the river. This had a small, priest population that lived there year-round. It was home to a large amount of burial mounds. And the most interesting fact is that it had karst, which created caves, and here it's thought that these caves served some sort of cultural significance. This is just a theory, but that it was afterlife related. And I hear you through the screen, well, why the mounds, Connor? And I hear you yell through the screen, well, why the mounds? Well, first I would say be patient, and second, I reached out to Dr. Parkatat, a decorated archaeologist who quite literally leads the Illinois State Archaeological Survey. He was really nice. Thanks, Doctor. He said, in eastern North America and parts of Mesoamerica, in China, by the way, earthen mounds were made of earth, which was a sacred, elementally powerful substance. Building monuments with it was akin to building sacredness or godliness into central monuments around which community identities were based. Bricks and stones might not do that, and so mounds were the medium of choice. Essentially, according to him, mounds were used to give spiritual ethos to important buildings in the settlement. Miss Belknap, who I also reached out to, she's the director of the site. Thank you, Miss Belknap. She pointed out that the geology of the area additionally just meant that Earth was, like, dirt was more plentiful than rocks. You see that if you ever drive into Cahokia. Around Cahokia, additionally, last thing before we really get onto it, researchers suggest that Cahokia was laid out relative to the local Mississippians' view of the cosmos. That's where you get this T shape of boom, boom. So, let's visit the largest figure at the site. The massive...
This is the biggest surviving mound at Cahokia, Monk's Mound. It's 100 feet tall with a base wider than that of the Great Pyramids of Giza. On a good day, you can even see nearby St. Louis. It would have been situated in the middle of the city. It would have been the cultural center. And it's made from almost 14.6 million loads of 5-pound baskets. Now, with that, it also was found to have alternating light and dark films when scientists took core samples. Now, this could have a myriad of reasons. A, it could have just been, it was built over such a long time that different dirt was taken from different areas, creating, so they basically had dirt taken from a, lighter rock, darker rock, or it's also theorized to have a mythological reason relating to a creation myth, something like that. This would have created a jawbreaker effect. They sourced the massive amounts of raw material needed to build this mound from burrow pits around the park, like this one. Now, it also is additionally theorized to the usage of it is most likely elevating some sort of religious or some religious leader, maybe a governmental leader, a king. We don't fully know, but it's elevating somebody. And eventually they left, and in 1400 CE, a small band of Oneida actually settled here. They're a Native American tribe, and they eventually left, and in 1700s, a band of Cahokians from the Illinois Confederacy then settled here. That's where this place gets their name of the Cahokia Mounds. Then, after that, Cistercian Trappists from La Trappe, France come. And they settle here in a band of about 80 on that second ridge. And eventually many of them fall ill, and in 1814 they move from here to Maryland, and then Maryland to La Trappe. After they leave, this place is once again abandoned.
Obviously, another huge impact to this city is the fact that it is heavily tied to the nearby Mississippi River. Now, this is nothing new. Historically, many rivers have been the center for early civilization. The Nile, the Rhine, the Ganges, it's happened before. So the Cahokians or the Mississippians utilized this river and many others, such as the Ohio and Illinois rivers, to trade along with established sites such as Aztalan, Fisher Mounds, Obion, Trempealeau, and others. So let's explain some of these satellite. So let's explain some of these satellite sites. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources states about this site that it rose and fell approximately the same time as Aztalan and was abandoned in 1200 AD. Its name comes from the white settlers who thought that this site was related to the Aztecs of Mexico. They also state that constructed 3 earthen platform mounds within the massive exterior log and clay fortifications that supported important buildings, a temple where a sacred fire was burning, a mortuary structure, and probably the residence of a chief or leader. The town was divided by exterior log walls into a residential area, a plaza, and a high area of land that seems to be reserved for elite members of Mississippian society. A mysterious enclosure extended from the town's southwestern end. The complex covered 35 acres, and it too was on the Mississippi. Now, the thing with Trempealeau and the Fisher Mounds is I was script writing this and I was like, oh, I want to look into this. Yeah. So, the issue with Trempealeau and the Fisher Mounds is that both of these sites are rarely reported on. There is a few journal articles, but you also have to pay for them. And this is just a little call to action for any viewers listening to go support research into Native Americans. The long and short of it is we don't have much on Trempealeau and Fisher Mounds. If more details come up, I'll cover them in a later archive.
Not all structures here left were mounds. Now, some included palisades, which are the remnants of the defensive walls used to protect the city. Others include Woodhenge. Now, there are many hypotheses on the usage of this site. Some include it could have been used to basically record the equinoxes. Others include maybe it was the remnants of some sort of observatory. Another thing is that maybe it could have been used to basically help set up the mounds in the correct position. As you see, this center pole, you go further, you get another one, and then it literally hits not only another mound, but the main mound, Monk's Mound. Now this is a replica. They found, the only thing really that's the same here is the holes that the trees are planted into, but they did, all the trees here, they're in the same holes, and they're replicas. They're painted red, just like the evidence that... Now, this is a replica. There's the same holes, but that's about it. Everything else historians have basically figured out, such as the length of the... not the length, but the height of the trees, also what kind of trees. There's also some evidence that they were painted red, so you can see some of these trees here have a distinct red hue. By 1350, the site is abandoned. it goes off the map. Now, there are many theorized reasons, usually connecting back to climate change. Possibly it could have been due to the Little Ice Age that was happening at the time, as in the climate cooled and they left because of that. It also possibly was due to the Little Ice Age or just general climate. They could not grow their main crop they used as food, maize. And slowly, they left for greener pastures. And the site became abandoned. This is a record of early this is a record of early urbanization. This is Spartan Archives number 6, signing off. I was editing, and I talked to Miss Belknap again, and she pointed out 2 inconsistencies I have with my video. First off, the basket loads, not actually 5-pound basket loads. In fact, they were 40-pound basket loads. Secondarily, the monks, the Cistercian Trappists, didn't live on Monk's Mound. They lived adjacent to it. They had an orchard on Monk's Mound, though.